Hello, everyone. This is Pastor Macario de la Cruz with Proyecto por la Familia de Arizona, bringing you resources and information once again. And today we have the great privilege of having a special guest with us, Senator Nancy Barto. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's a joy. It's always a joy to talk with you, Pastor Matt. Thanks.
Yeah, no, I feel privileged, to have the opportunity to do this interview, just to talk a little bit about who you are and the work that you're doing. In my book, you are one of the pro-life champions in our state. And I want to make sure that people know that. You spent 17 years in the Arizona legislature doing the work, defending life. And so maybe we can begin with that, talking a little bit of not only those 70 years, but what motivated you to start? What happened?
Yeah, it was such a privilege to work with so many other pro-life legislators and governors who had the same passion for life and to work alongside of them. And I love kind of going back, like you said, and seeing and sharing the story of what got us involved, because I never saw it coming that I would be one of those people that could stand for life in the legislature and pass those laws. What got me and my husband Joe into this arena to begin with was our children, and we found out that abortion was an issue in our state. That abortion was happening, and it was happening a lot, and that bothered us because we had 3 young daughters at the time. And so I felt compelled to pray alongside others at the abortion clinics way back when. I used to take our youngest and reach out to the young women or any woman and her significant other as they were trying to enter, and we tried to give them some information and alternatives and be praying for them to change their minds. And that led to us being involved in a Supreme Court case that allowed us to even be there in the first place, because prayer is powerful, and being there in front of an abortion clinic is powerful, and it disrupts the business that's happening there. So the city of Phoenix actually passed a law saying that we couldn't be there within certain number of feet of the entrance, and so we fought back with the law. And I was one of the plaintiffs that was in that case that went to the Arizona Supreme Court and then eventually to the U.S. Supreme Court, saying, no, this is a free speech issue and we are allowed to be there and express ourselves and to pray in front of a clinic on public sidewalks. And so we won that case. And so that right there showed me that, it only takes one person, and maybe in conjunction with others, but that one person can make a difference. And then what got us going a little bit later was we found out that in our own district, a school nurse had taken a young 14-year-old girl to get an abortion, and her parents didn't know. She did this without her parents knowing, and they didn't find out until she ended up in the emergency room with complications. And we thought, there's got to be a law against this. I mean, parents need to be involved in their minors' health care. And sure enough, there was no law. They were trying to pass a parental consent law at the state legislature at the time, but our state senator in our district was voting no. So we got behind a young candidate who agreed with us and was taking on this very strong incumbent. And we did our little part, and that kind of launched us into more of the political aspect of what was going on. And he ended up winning by just 256 votes. So, and eventually I found myself in a position where I was appointed to the legislature myself to serve along such people. And the rest is history. We passed a lot of protections for women and girls throughout the 17 years. So that's how I got there. And to see now with where we are now with the state, in the balance, so to speak, trying to decide which way we're going to go. Which way are the people bent now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned? It's still a huge issue, and it's not just an issue, but it's all about life. It's all about protecting those unborn babies and protecting their moms.
Amazing. I mean, so all that great work began with just prayers on the sidewalk. Wow, what a miracle. I mean, like, I can call it that. I can say that. I mean, what a miracle. I mean, like, and what you said, I mean, like, did you ever imagine what God was going to do through that? I mean, like, just by being faithful and showing up right there on the sidewalk.
No. No. In fact, I'm one of these, I think pretty typical moms and people in general. I wanted to just be a mom, take care of my children. In fact, that's what I did. I stayed at home and raised our children. Never was one that wanted to be outspoken or even talk in front of people. It was kind of a huge step of faith to just get out there and pray, silently mostly, because that's, being out there and speaking in front of people like you do when you're an elected official, that's one of man's greatest fears, right? And here I found myself in a position where, God kind of plucked me and he said, no, I want you to, participate in that. Your voice means something. I see it as a great miracle that he has a plan for each one of us that's usually much greater than we can even ask or think.
Yes. And one thing that I get, from your story, and it's something that I've experienced personally as well, is what God asks of us is just to show up.
Yeah.
He doesn't want us to have all the answers, all the understanding, even all the knowledge. What he wants is for us to trust him and to show up. Just show up.
Yeah.
And that's the message that we're going to be telling people. I'm like, we might feel like we're alone in this fight, but what God is asking us is to show up, to do our part. And that's what we're going to do. And it is such a great testimony, great story. And I had the privilege of witnessing some of those sessions, some of the legislative sessions. I mean, like where I heard you speak in defense of life. But now that season has ended, but you are still fighting for life, right?
I am, and I'm glad to be in the battle because, in these times, I don't think the battle ever really ends. It just changes where you're going to be fighting it. And so I'm grateful to be able to help, using my experience and perspective, having helped pass so many protections and then seeing the threat on the horizon with this extreme abortion amendment, Prop 139. It's almost like the Lord had me move from one arena to another just for this point in time. And again, like you said, it's just taking that step and showing up where he has you. And so that's exactly right. I'm grateful to be focused solely on this and not on everything else that's going on in the legislature like I had been for 17 years.
Yes, and I honestly believe that God was preparing you for such a time as this. I mean, like I always say, who better to talk to us about this than somebody who has been fighting, has experienced those prayer times on the sidewalk, who has walked and who spent all those years protecting and advocating for all those protections for women. I'm like, who better to now lend that voice and sound the alarm of what's happening in our state than someone like you. So thank you. Thank you once again for this time. But let's talk about the reality right now in Arizona. What is coming. Many people don't realize that we are on the brink of losing many of the protections that people like you have fought for so many years. And it's through a ballot initiative, right? And it has a number now. It's Prop 139. And I believe that there's no coincidences. I believe that it is no coincidence that it's Prop 139, because I believe that it goes directly against what the Bible tells us in Psalm 139. So maybe that could be easy for people to remember. This proposition, Prop 139, goes directly against Psalm 139. But for those people that maybe don't know much about that amendment, can you tell us what is that? What is it?
Yeah. Well, it isn't a coincidence. I'm sure that it does align with that psalm. But for those that may not, even, come from that perspective, it is so important to really understand, like you said, what the impact of this proposition in particular will do. It is a constitutional amendment, like you said. It's an initiative, which means that the people signed petitions to get it on the ballot, and that way it ends up as almost a permanent law in our state constitution, virtually unchangeable unless there's a subsequent initiative that undoes it or improves it. What's so different about that and current law is that all of those protections that you allude to as being at risk, and that we'll get into, I think, in a couple of minutes, those would all bow to the fundamental right to an abortion. And so when we passed all of those protections over those 17 plus years in the legislature, we fought one by one for those, like parental consent, informed consent, common sense health and safety standards that any person would expect for any other medical procedure, conscience rights, taxpayer funding for abortion, all of those things that a lot of people think are very common sense, having moms and dads involved to protect their minors. When this passes, if it passes, all of those would become unenforceable, but the legislature wouldn't have an opportunity to put those protections back in through regular statute at the legislature. Those would have to be done at the ballot. This is an extreme step to take for voters. And I think that, when they were putting those petitions in front of voters to sign, just signed to get it on the ballot. It's just this. It just codifies Roe. It just protects your rights or whatever. I don't think they're being truthful about what the real ramifications are for the people it affects, the families, the women, and of course the unborn.
Yeah, how extreme it is.
Yes.
And another thing, that I think it's worth noting is that in Arizona, the current law is that abortions are allowed up to 15 weeks. That's the law of the land, right?
Correct.
And so the question would be then, what is it that this amendment, why is it needed, and what extensions? Because it extends it beyond the 15 weeks that we currently have in Arizona.
Yes, and that's another key point that I think, proponents of this are trying to confuse voters about. That, you either pass this or you don't have any abortions. That's not true. We don't always agree on where that limit should be, but the law of the land's been settled in Arizona for now, and it's 15 weeks. That's almost 4 months, plus beyond that in medical emergencies. So, it just isn't true that, that we need Prop 139. In fact, it would really harm women if we voted for that, because it would go far beyond what most people support. 90% of voters, whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, support limiting abortions to 15 weeks or earlier. And this would go all the way through 9 months. All the way through 9 months. That's past when an unborn child can live outside the womb on their own, after they are a viable human being. And so, this is just, it doesn't make sense to undo a law that we already have with all of the protections like informed consent and other health and safety standards when we've already got a 15-week law and beyond that is going to continue without Prop 139.
Yes, and people need to know this. People need to be aware of this, because I think there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misinformation about this. I mean, like, not a lot of people know, or people don't know that the law of the land is that 15 weeks, that abortion is allowed up to 15 weeks, and even beyond that, like you said, for medical emergencies. And we need to make sure that people are aware that that is the law of the land, and that this ballot measure, Prop 139, goes way beyond that. It's way too extreme. And it is not, and the sole purpose of this amendment is not to protect women and girls from abortion, correct? Because it would undo, you said it would undo all the safety measures that we have in place right now.
Yeah. And the list is long in that respect, Mac. It's not only, would it shut moms and dads out, but, when you're talking about the danger that minors are in, that young girls are in, and how susceptible they are right now to being coerced into getting an abortion by, a person that might take advantage of them, maybe at school, a school counselor or a school coach, or even a sex trafficker. They could go ahead and coerce that girl into getting an abortion. And then the amendment actually protects those people that do that coercion and abuse from being found out. They can cover their crimes because the language says that they cannot, that the state cannot hold them accountable for aiding or assisting any pregnant individual to get an abortion. So, the language is very clear. And I think it's important for people to understand and read it for themselves. You can go to itgoes2far.com. You can go to the Secretary of State's website and read it. And it's pretty short, but the language is very clear. It's so broad and undefined that it allows all of these loopholes that really endanger women, and especially young girls.
Yeah, what I get from what you were just sharing with us is that it would actually protect sex offenders. This ballot measure would actually protect sex offenders, and it would not protect women and girls at all. And so people need to know this, and you said it best. People need to read it for themselves. So can you tell us once again, where can we find that language? Where can we see that?
Well, we've analyzed the language and put it in black and white, or maybe it's blue, I don't remember, but it's very clearly explained on itgoestofar.com. And we call it It Goes Too Far because, it goes way beyond what most people support, but it goes point by point about where the language actually says the required doctor's gone. I mean, any treating health professional can provide an abortion. That puts people at risk from having the abortion pill prescribed to a young girl without having done an ultrasound to determine whether or not she's a good candidate, so to speak, how far along she might be to have an abortion pill. I mean, things like this that are very practical. So it goes point by point in the language at itgoestofar.com, and you can see there's a tab that says what the language says and how it goes too far. People need to dig into it before they vote.
And that leads me to my next point. What can we do? I mean, we need to read the language, get informed, but it goes beyond that. What else do we need to do? What call can we give out to the community, to those who are listening to us?
Great question, because, I often say this when I'm talking about this proposition, we're just starting the conversation about, where Arizona should go on this issue. And a good place to start is really with where we are right now. Let's look at what we're facing with Prop 139. Is this right for Arizona now that, the Supreme Court has acted and thrown this back to the states? We've got a 15-week law. What people need to do is read it for themselves. And then when they understand what it does, I don't think anything will keep them from talking about it with others. And we want to help get information that they can share with others in their hands. So they can sign up on the website to get involved. They can help attend a briefing that we kind of go through everything in detail even more so that they understand it and can help their neighbors, their family, their friends understand the risk of not knowing and voting in a vacuum in November on this prop. So, go to the website, itgoestofar.com, read it. You can get involved. You can email us, and we'll be happy to walk you through how you can get your church involved. Pastors are key to this conversation as well. I mean, I think about, okay, if this passes on November 5th, what's going to happen on November 6th when pastors find out they didn't know enough to warn the members, the families in their church about this? They're going to see the fallout right away, how it will affect them and the women and the girls, the families in their churches. There are pastors' resources and church resources for them to better understand what's at stake. It's not just a pro-life, pro-choice binary choice here. This is really a complicated ballot initiative that people need to understand, and they can really help further that conversation in their churches.
That's right. And I believe that there is a page. It's ArizonaProlifePastors.org that, if that many pastors have signed on to. It's a declaration that pastors can sign. And if you want to know if your pastor has signed, you can visit that page. All those Christian listeners, you can go to that page and you can thank. If your pastor has signed that declaration, please thank them. Thank them for standing for life. And if they haven't, then, encourage them to read the proposition, to read the declaration, and sign it if they agree with the points laid out right there, because these are biblical foundations. So we would encourage our listeners, go and check it out, ArizonaProlifePastors.org. And one thing that you brought up is that this proposition will be on the ballot in November. So how important is it to register to vote and also vote?
Well, that's the key. We know, this is definitely has roots in, it's a spiritual issue. But unfortunately, it's a political issue right now as well. And so it's on the ballot, and the only way we can stop it is for people to vote no. And so if you're not registered to vote, yes, we've got to make sure you are registered. So register, but don't wait to start talking about what this is with your friends and family, because those ballots are going to start coming out. If you're getting an early ballot or an absentee ballot, don't wait to register, because those ballots will come out and people will start voting, and we need you to start informing other people and encouraging them to get informed before they start getting those early ballots in early October. And so, registering to vote, voting, encouraging your pastor, and if they're not talking about it from the pulpit, encourage them to do that early. We learned from states that have failed to stop a similar extreme amendments like ours, that the churches did get involved, but a little bit too late. So I think we're ahead of the curve on that, but we can't take that for granted. We need to know if you need to know if your pastor has signed that declaration, and if he's aware of the nature of Prop 139.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know what? And this is a call to our audience. If you're listening, please subscribe to our channel, and share this story. We need to talk to our children and our children's children about this issue. We need to communicate, speak out within our circle of influence about this issue. We are here telling you that we stand in opposition to Prop 139, and our encouragement is vote no on Proposition 139. We need to spread the word. This amendment is not something for Arizona. It's too extreme for Arizona, and we need to stand up and spread the word and say it like that. We need to say that this measure is too extreme for Arizona. So encourage those in your circle of influence to vote no on Prop 139. Senator, thank you so much for your time. This has been just a great privilege for me.
Thank you, Pastor Mac. Appreciate you.
Yes. And thank you to our audience. Again, please subscribe, and share this video, and turn on your notifications, because we will continue to put out videos like this with information about this issue and other issues that will affect our families, that will affect our children and our children's children. So thank you so much for watching. May God bless you.